Friends, if you want to watch the super hit romantic fantasy movie Ghost, 1990, in English, then you must like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our updates. In today's video, we're going to talk about one of the most iconic films of the 90s, Ghost, 1990. We'll explore what this movie is all about, where you can watch it, and share some fascinating facts that you probably didn't know about this film. I'll also give you complete details on which OTT platform or satellite TV channel this film is available on, so you can watch it easily. Along with that, we'll dive deep into the technical department, the music score, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, and the box office performance of this movie. We'll also discuss the beautiful and emotional storyline of Ghost, and I'll share a short review to give you a taste of what makes this film so unforgettable. Plus, we'll talk about the behind-the-scenes facts, the incredible star cast, the unforgettable performances by Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg, and who played which role in the film. So friends, make sure to watch this video till the end because you won't want to miss a single detail. Ghost, 1990. Plot and narrative analysis. Ghost, 1990, directed by Jerry Zucker and written by Bruce Joel Rubin, unfolds as a deeply emotional and supernatural romantic thriller. The film follows a fairly conventional narrative structure, but integrates elements of fantasy and the afterlife in a way that elevates its storytelling. At its core, Ghost is about love transcending death, justice from beyond the grave, and the spiritual connection between souls. Beginning, establishing the relationship and the central conflict. The film opens by establishing the deeply loving relationship between Sam Wheat, Patrick Swayze, a New York banker, and Molly Jensen, Demi Moore, a sculptor. They have recently moved into a new apartment, and their bond is strong, intimate, and genuine. Alongside them is Carl Brunner, Tony Goldwyn, Sam's friend and co-worker. In this early stage, the audience is led to believe this is a typical romance story with light hints at something more significant when Sam expresses concerns about saying "I love you," preferring to say ditto in response. This becomes a symbolic emotional motif that recurs later with great impact. The plot takes a dramatic turn when Sam is murdered in a seemingly random mugging. However, instead of the story ending with his death, Sam's ghost rises from his body, marking the beginning of the film's supernatural arc. Middle, the supernatural journey and the uncovering of truth. As Sam's spirit lingers in the world, he soon discovers that his death was no accident. The mugging was orchestrated by his trusted friend Carl, who was laundering money and feared Sam had discovered the truth. This betrayal forms the primary conflict in the narrative. Unable to communicate with the living, Sam becomes desperate to protect Molly, who is still unaware of the danger she is in. He finds an unlikely ally in Oda Mae Brown, Whoopi Goldberg, a fraudulent psychic who unexpectedly discovers she can actually hear Sam's voice. This twist introduces comic relief as well as narrative propulsion. Oda Mae's transformation, from a con artist to a sincere helper, adds another layer of growth and redemption to the story. Through Oda Mae, Sam communicates with Molly, trying to warn her and uncover Carl's intentions. The film mixes romance, suspense, and fantasy elements seamlessly during this stretch, maintaining audience engagement through tension and emotional resonance. Key turning points. Sam's death, the inciting incident that transitions the film from romance to supernatural thriller. Discovery of Carl's betrayal, a pivotal emotional and narrative twist that redefines the entire plot. Oda Mae's real powers, changes the direction of the film from helplessness to agency for Sam's ghost. Bank scene with Oda Mae, a blend of comedy and justice as Oda Mae and Sam outwit Carl by transferring the stolen money to charity. Climactic confrontation. Carl attempts to kill Molly and Oda Mae, leading to a final battle where Sam intervenes from the spirit world. End, resolution and emotional closure. The climax unfolds with Carl's death, which is poetically handled. He is killed by a piece of falling glass, and dark shadowy spirits drag his soul away, reinforcing the theme of justice from beyond. In the final moments, Sam becomes visible to Molly for a brief farewell. Their emotional goodbye, punctuated by Sam finally saying "I love you" and Molly replying with ditto, brings the narrative full circle. Sam's soul is finally at peace and ascends into the afterlife, bathed in white light, a moment filled with warmth, redemption, and emotional release. Narrative style and emotional or thematic impact. The narrative of Ghost follows a mostly linear structure but incorporates dual perspectives: Sam's ghostly view of the world and Molly's human grief. The emotional weight is anchored in love, loss, betrayal, and justice. Supernatural elements are not used as gimmicks but to deepen the emotional arc and convey metaphysical ideas about life after death, unresolved love, and spiritual growth. Though the structure is traditional, setup, confrontation, resolution, the film's unique fusion of romance and the paranormal, alongside strong thematic beats about trust, loyalty, and letting go, make it a standout example of how genre blending can enhance narrative depth. Narrative structure and story progression. The film follows a linear structure, but it plays with perspective and metaphysical boundaries to create emotional complexity. It begins with a romantic setup and quickly shifts into a supernatural thriller, maintaining a steady pace while deepening character arcs and thematic resonance. Clapperboard plot overview. Act I, setup and inciting incident. Sam Wheat, a successful banker, and Molly Jensen, a sculptor, move into a New York loft with help from Sam's friend Carl Brunner. Their relationship is loving but emotionally restrained. Sam struggles to say "I love you," replying only with ditto. One night, Sam is murdered during a mugging. Molly is devastated, and Sam's spirit remains on Earth, unseen and unheard. Act 2, rising action and discovery. Sam discovers his death was orchestrated. The mugger, Willie Lopez, was hired by Carl, who is laundering money and feared Sam would expose him. Sam's inability to communicate with Molly creates tension and urgency. He finds Oda Mae Brown, a fraudulent psychic who unexpectedly can hear him. Their dynamic adds humor and heart. Through Oda Mae, Sam warns Molly, but she's skeptical. Carl manipulates her further, deepening the conflict. Act 3, confrontation and resolution. Sam learns to interact with the physical world through a subway ghost, gaining the ability to move objects. He and Oda Mae thwart Carl's plan to transfer stolen money, redirecting it to charity. In a climactic confrontation, Carl dies and is dragged away by shadowy spirits, a visual metaphor for moral reckoning. Sam, having completed his purpose, says goodbye to Molly. She finally hears him, and he tells her "I love you." She replies, ditto. Key turning points. Turning point impact. Sam's murdered shifts genre from romance to supernatural thriller. Discovery of Carl's betrayal introduces moral conflict and stakes. Oda Mae's real psychic ability enables communication and drives plot forward. Sam's mastery of ghostly powers empowers him to act and protect Molly. Final confrontation resolves external conflict and completes emotional arc. Broken heart emotional and thematic resonance. Love beyond death. The film explores how love transcends physical boundaries. Sam's journey is driven by his devotion to Molly, culminating in emotional closure. Redemption and justice. Carl's downfall and Sam's spiritual ascension reflect a moral universe where justice prevails. Communication and vulnerability. Sam's inability to say "I love you" in life contrasts with his desperate attempts to communicate in death, a poignant commentary on emotional repression. Faith and belief. Molly's skepticism and eventual acceptance mirror the audience's journey from doubt to belief in the unseen. Narrative techniques. Perspective shifts. While the story is mostly from Sam's ghostly point of view, it occasionally shifts to Molly and Oda Mae, grounding the supernatural in emotional realism. Symbolism. Light and shadow are used to represent spiritual forces. The beam of light for ascension, shadowy figures for damnation. Foreshadowing. Early scenes hint at Carl's duplicity and Sam's emotional distance, setting up later revelations. Sam Wheat, Patrick Swayze. From rational skeptic to selfless spirit. At the beginning of the film, Sam Wheat is portrayed as a grounded and logical individual, a successful banker who is deeply in love with Molly but emotionally guarded. His inability to say "I love you" directly, opting instead for ditto, signals an internal hesitation to fully open up. This subtle emotional restraint defines his starting point. After his sudden death, Sam's character enters a completely new realm of existence, one where his rational worldview is shattered. As a ghost, he is thrust into an unfamiliar spiritual dimension where he can no longer interact physically with the world. Initially confused and frustrated, Sam's journey becomes one of discovery, love, and justice. His motivations evolve from survival and understanding to protecting Molly at all costs. Over time, Sam becomes more emotionally expressive, self-aware, and spiritually mature. His willingness to sacrifice, even after death, reveals the depth of his love and marks his ultimate transformation. From a man who struggled with vulnerability to a spirit who finds peace through love and closure. By the end of the film, when he finally says "I love you" to Molly, it represents not just romantic resolution but a full-circle emotional evolution. His arc is completed through selflessness, emotional honesty, and spiritual transcendence. 2. Molly Jensen, Demi Moore. From grief-stricken lover to empowered believer. Molly begins the film as an artistic, sensitive, and deeply affectionate woman. Her love for Sam is pure and profound, and their relationship is clearly built on emotional intimacy. However, Sam's sudden and violent death plunges her into despair and vulnerability. Throughout the film, Molly is confronted with the unimaginable, being visited and protected by Sam's ghost, communicated through a psychic she doesn't believe in. Her initial skepticism is understandable and reflects her grounded, rational nature. As the story progresses, Molly slowly opens herself up to the possibility of the supernatural. Her emotional journey is a gradual transformation from mourning and disbelief to faith and spiritual connection. Her development is less overtly dramatic than Sam's or Oda Mae's, but equally powerful in its subtlety. By the time she is finally able to hear and see Sam in the film's final moments, her character has shifted from passive grieving to someone who has accepted the intangible yet enduring nature of love. Molly's growth represents emotional resilience and the courage to believe in things beyond logic. 3. Oda Mae Brown, Whoopi Goldberg. From fraudulent psychic to spiritual conduit. Oda Mae Brown is arguably the most dynamic and surprising character in Ghost. Introduced as a loud, flamboyant con artist who fakes spiritual readings for money, she initially serves as comic relief. However, her arc quickly deepens when she realizes she can actually hear Sam. This discovery startles Oda Mae and forces her to confront her own disbelief in what she's been pretending to do for years. Reluctantly pulled into Sam's mission to protect Molly and expose Carl, Oda Mae transitions from opportunist to reluctant hero. Her journey involves not just helping Sam and Molly, but also confronting physical danger, standing up for what's right, and realizing her own capacity for real spiritual power. In helping Sam find peace and justice, Oda Mae reclaims her dignity and earns her place as a legitimate medium. Whoopi Goldberg's performance earned her an Academy Award, largely due to how skillfully she portrayed Oda Mae's transformation, from comedic side character to a brave, compassionate, and empowered woman. 4. Carl Brunner, Tony Goldwyn. From trusted friend to corrupt antagonist. Carl's character arc moves in the opposite direction, a descent rather than a growth. Initially introduced as Sam's affable and supportive friend, Carl's betrayal becomes one of the film's most shocking emotional blows. His motivation is rooted in greed and fear. As Sam's murder is revealed to be orchestrated by Carl, his character transforms from a background figure to the primary antagonist. What makes Carl's arc compelling is how his desperation unravels his mask of charm and drives him toward reckless violence. Rather than redemption, Carl's arc concludes in moral and literal downfall, reinforcing the film's theme of karmic justice. His trajectory adds tension, danger, and emotional betrayal, raising the stakes for Sam and Molly. Relationships and emotional dynamics. Sam and Molly's relationship, the emotional heartbeat of the film. Their love story, separated by death but held together by enduring emotional bonds, is what drives the audience's investment. The intimacy, sorrow, and final farewell give the film its iconic status. Sam and Oda Mae's relationship. This unlikely partnership brings humor, urgency, and heart to the story. Their evolving trust and collaboration balance the film's heavy emotional beats with lightness and humanity. Molly and Oda Mae's relationship, initially filled with skepticism and mistrust, this dynamic evolves into one of respect and belief. Molly's willingness to trust Oda Mae in the end reflects her own character growth. Conclusion. Ghost offers rich, layered character development wrapped in a story of love, betrayal, justice, and spiritual awakening. Each major character undergoes meaningful transformation, and their emotional journeys mirror the film's deeper themes of faith, connection, and letting go. Through powerful performances and carefully written arcs, the characters elevate Ghost from a supernatural thriller to a timeless emotional experience. Would you like the same analysis summarized for video voiceover or YouTube content format? Sam Wheat, Patrick Swayze. I Never Left You. Initial state, emotionally guarded, rational thinker. Sam starts as a successful Wall Street banker, a man in control of his career, his relationship, and his emotions. Despite being deeply in love with Molly, he resists vulnerability. This is symbolized by his refusal to say "I love you," choosing instead the emotionally distant ditto. This trait establishes a core part of his internal conflict, emotional restraint and fear of complete openness, even with someone he loves deeply. Transformation trigger, death. His murder is the turning point not just for the plot but for his internal growth. Sam is forced out of his comfort zone, literally and metaphorically, as he becomes a powerless observer of the world he once navigated with confidence. The initial ghost phase is marked by denial and confusion. He must learn new spiritual rules and accept his new form of existence. His rational worldview is shattered, replaced by a desperate need to emotionally connect, communicate, and protect. Middle arc, from frustration to purpose. Sam's discovery of Carl's betrayal and the danger Molly is in fuels his transformation from a passive ghost to a determined guardian. His interactions with Oda Mae become a learning curve, his force to rely on someone else, breaking the lone wolf persona he once held. His increasing desperation to save Molly reveals his emotional maturity. He becomes more expressive and urgent about his feelings he couldn't vocalize in life. Climax and resolution, emotional completion and transcendence. Sam's final scene, where he finally says "I love you," is the emotional climax of his arc. It signifies growth, not just in his feelings for Molly but in his ability to express those feelings without fear. His soul earns peace not just through justice served, but through emotional evolution. His departure into the afterlife isn't a tragedy, it's a spiritual victory. His arc is a complete emotional circle: feared loss, action, connection, transcendence. Artist palette: Molly Jensen, Demi Moore. It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you. Initial state: emotionally open, sensitive artist. Molly is the heart of the relationship, emotionally available and romantic. She believes in love, creativity, and deep human connection. As a sculptor, her art symbolizes her emotional transparency and the tactile, physical ways she experiences love. Her relationship with Sam feels grounded, intimate, routine, but deeply affectionate. Transformation trigger: grief and trauma. Sam's sudden death shatters Molly's emotional world. She spirals into isolation, grief, and silence. Her vulnerability becomes more intense when Carl, whom she trusts, offers her support, unknowingly putting her in danger. Her character becomes closed off, skeptical, and deeply cautious. She loses her sense of emotional grounding. Middle arc, from skepticism to reawakening. Molly's development hinges on her eventual belief that Sam is truly reaching out to her. This belief doesn't come easily. It's built through layers of evidence, through her growing interactions with Oda Mae, and through deeply personal moments that echo her past life with Sam. Her arc isn't just about believing in ghosts. It's about rediscovering the idea that love doesn't die with the body. Her journey back to openness, trust, and emotional bravery mirrors Sam's own growth from guardedness to expression. In a reversal of roles, Molly, once the emotionally expressive one, must now learn to trust something unseen. Climax and resolution, emotional and spiritual acceptance. In the final moments, Molly sees Sam and hears his voice. Her reply, ditto, mirrors his emotional refrain and serves as the culmination of their shared emotional language. Molly's arc concludes with her acceptance of spiritual love and her own internal strength. She's no longer just the grieving partner. She's someone who now understands the eternity of love. Crystal Ball: Oda Mae Brown, Whoopi Goldberg. His talking to me. Why are you doing this to me? Initial state: comic relief, fake psychic. Oda Mae is introduced as a flamboyant, hustling spiritualist who doesn't actually believe in the world she claims to communicate with. She's street smart, loud, comedic, and skeptical, even of her own powers. Her initial scenes exist mainly for humor, but this character soon becomes the film's emotional and moral engine. Transformation trigger: real communication with Sam. When Sam's voice actually reaches her, Oda Mae is shaken. For the first time, she is forced to confront the reality of the spiritual realm she's been pretending to channel. Her disbelief turns into horror, then into reluctant acceptance, and finally into purpose. Oda Mae's character arc is extraordinary because it tracks both spiritual awakening and moral courage. She is pulled out of her comfort zone and forced to help someone she doesn't know, risking her life and freedom. Middle arc, comic to heroic. Initially resistant, she agrees to help Sam, first for personal gain, but eventually out of empathy and conviction. She helps him move money out of Carl's account, poses as a socialite in a bank heist with comedic flair, and puts herself directly in harm's way to save Molly. Her character development shifts from self-serving to self-sacrificing. Climax and resolution, becoming a true medium. Oda Mae proves herself to be more than comic relief. She becomes the emotional bridge between life and death. By the end, she's not just a helper, she's a believer and a hero. Her transformation from fake psychic to real medium is both literal and symbolic, a journey from illusion to purpose. Briefcase: Carl Brunner, Tony Goldwyn. I had no choice, Sam. Initial state: friendly, charming, ambitious. Carl begins as the stereotypical best friend, helpful, funny, loyal. He works closely with Sam at the bank and appears to be a supportive third wheel in Sam and Molly's relationship. This initial likability makes his betrayal more shocking and emotionally damaging. Transformation trigger: exposure of betrayal. Once Carl's involvement in Sam's murder is revealed, his mask of charm fades. What emerges is a man driven by greed, fear, and panic. Carl is not evil in the cartoonish sense. He's pathetic, cowardly, and morally corrupt. His choices are driven by desperation and a desire to cover his tracks. Middle arc: from hidden villain to desperate antagonist. As Sam continues to haunt him and sabotage his plans, Carl becomes increasingly unstable. His actions grow more violent, more erratic. His development is a descent into spiritual ruin, a reflection of what happens when human ambition overrides conscience. Climax and resolution: moral and spiritual collapse. Carl's end is violent and symbolic. As he's killed by a falling glass pane, his death mirrors the destruction he caused. The black, shadowy spirits dragging his soul away offer a chilling visual metaphor for the consequences of a life led by betrayal and greed. His character arc serves as a moral warning. Unlike the spiritual elevation of Sam, Carl descends into eternal punishment. Interwoven character dynamics. Sam left and right arrow Molly. Their love is the film's emotional spine. The progression from closeness-separation reconnect gives Ghost its heart. Sam left and right arrow Oda Mae. Their reluctant partnership becomes one of mutual respect and emotional healing. They help each other evolve. Molly left and right arrow Oda Mae. From mistrust to belief, this relationship reflects the theme of spiritual awakening and solidarity among women. Performing arts conclusion: character development as thematic backbone. Ghost succeeds not just because of its innovative genre blend or powerful performances, but because its characters are multidimensional and constantly evolving. Every major arc supports the film's central themes: love after death, spiritual justice, emotional closure, and transformation beyond the physical world. The character development in Ghost is not only compelling on an emotional level, but it also elevates the story from a ghost story to a timeless exploration of love, loss, and redemption. Patrick Swayze as Sam Wheat. Performance overview: subtle, soulful, and emotionally restrained with gradual release. Patrick Swayze delivers a deeply affecting performance as Sam Wheat, a man who transitions from a stoic banker to a protective spirit. At the start, Swayze plays Sam with quiet intensity, reserved in expressing love but clearly devoted to Molly. His emotionally guarded nature is evident in small, telling gestures, and Swayze handles this internal conflict with impressive nuance. After Sam's death, Swayze's performance shifts dramatically. His confusion, rage, and eventual purpose as a ghost are portrayed with visceral sincerity. He doesn't overplay the supernatural element but grounds it with emotional realism. One of the most challenging aspects of his role is that much of his performance requires non-physical interaction with the world around him. He must convey frustration, longing, and love without being able to touch or speak to most characters. His emotional arc, culminating in the climactic scene where he finally says "I love you" to Molly, is powerful largely due to the restraint he shows earlier in the film. Swayze's performance is not showy, but it is undeniably human, and it adds layers of tenderness and tragedy that elevate the narrative. Notable moments: Sam watching Molly grieve without being able to comfort her. The emotional farewell, bathed in white light, where his voice finally shakes with open vulnerability. Artist palette: Demi Moore as Molly Jensen. Performance overview: emotionally grounded, heartfelt, and quietly powerful. Demi Moore anchors Ghost with a grounded and emotionally raw performance. As Molly, she embodies vulnerability, grief, and an unwavering connection to love with impressive realism. Moore's ability to communicate deep emotional suffering with minimal dialogue, through expressions, silence, and body language, is a standout strength. Moore's grief is never melodramatic or exaggerated. Her portrayal of Molly mourning Sam's death feels personal, internalized, and authentic. Whether she's working on her pottery in silence, listening to Unchained melody, or slowly breaking down in front of Carl or Oda Mae, she captures the emotional truth of sudden loss. She also excels in the transformation Molly undergoes, from disbelief and skepticism to eventual acceptance of Sam's spiritual presence. Moore's performance is critical in keeping the supernatural elements emotionally credible. If Molly's reactions felt insincere or overly dramatic, the entire film could have veered into melodrama. Instead, Moore keeps it believable and heartfelt. Notable moments: The iconic pottery scene, a sensual moment made bittersweet after Sam's death. The moment she first senses Sam's presence and reacts with both fear and hope. Her whispered ditto in the final scene, expressing volumes with a single word. Crystal Ball Whoopi Goldberg as Oda Mae Brown. Performance overview, electrifying, scene-stealing, and emotionally transformative. Whoopi Goldberg's portrayal of Oda Mae Brown is a masterclass in tonal balance. She manages to be hilarious, emotionally compelling, and spiritually resonant all in one character. Her role is the film's biggest tonal risk, as she begins as comic relief. Yet Goldberg transitions Oda Mae from a phony psychic hustler to a true spiritual medium with great depth and clarity. Goldberg's comic timing is impeccable. She injects energy and levity into a story that deals with death and grief, yet never undermines its emotional core. Her reactions to hearing Sam's voice for the first time, panic, denial, sarcasm, are laugh-out-loud funny but also grounded in believability. She embodies the everyday woman suddenly confronted with something extraordinary. What truly elevates her performance, however, is how she handles Oda Mae's growth. As she begins to understand the weight of what she's been asked to do, Goldberg imbues her with courage, compassion, and strength. Her scenes with Demi Moore are filled with surprising vulnerability, and by the film's end, she becomes the emotional bridge between life and death. Awards. Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, 1991. BAFTA and Golden Globe wins, further solidifying her performance as one of the greatest supporting roles in romantic fantasy cinema. Notable moments. Oda Mae's first conversation with Sam, chaotic, comedic, and completely memorable. Pretending to be Rita Miller in the bank scene, balancing absurdity with urgency. Allowing Sam to possess her body to touch Molly, an emotionally resonant and selfless moment played with restraint and reverence. Briefcase Tony Goldwyn as Carl Brunner. Performance overview, deceptively charming, increasingly desperate, and morally bankrupt. Tony Goldwyn's performance as Carl is subtle at first, then grows increasingly intense as his character's mask slips. Early in the film, he plays the loyal friend convincingly. His friendly demeanor, casual humor, and professional charm make the eventual betrayal far more painful for the audience. As the truth about Carl's criminal activities is revealed, Goldwyn shifts gears. He leans into the moral unraveling of the character, becoming paranoid, aggressive, and dangerous. Rather than portraying Carl as a cold villain, Goldwyn gives him an edge of desperation that makes him feel more real. He's not a genius mastermind, but an ambitious man who made a terrible choice and is now cornered. His descent into violence is unsettling, particularly in the climax where he threatens both Molly and Oda Mae. His final moments, filled with terror and guilt, are played without exaggeration. He is punished not just by the story, but by the weight of his own guilt and fear. Notable moments. The moment when he's alone and breaks down, revealing his fear and guilt. The quiet menace in his voice as he slowly reveals his intentions to Molly. His death, marked by a frozen look of horror as shadowy spirits drag him away, Goldwyn plays the fear with chilling authenticity. Busts in silhouette supporting cast and ensemble impact. While the film is primarily driven by its four leads, the supporting cast contributes to the film's realism and pacing. Rick Aviles as Willie Lopez, the street thug who kills Sam, adds tension and an urban grit that grounds the fantasy. Phil Leeds and Vincent Schiavelli play fellow ghosts, adding either humor or eerie insight into the rules of the spirit world. Each of these characters, though minor, is distinct and well performed, keeping the film immersive from beginning to end. Performing arts conclusion. Performances as the film's soul. The performances in Ghost, 1990, are not just well executed, they are essential to the film's emotional impact and longevity. Patrick Swayze brings soulful depth to a man stuck between worlds. Demi Moore embodies grief and longing with haunting precision. Tony Goldwyn gives the antagonist nuance and tragedy. And Whoopi Goldberg, in a career-defining role, balances comedy, emotion, and spirituality with masterful finesse. Together, this ensemble elevates Ghost from a simple supernatural romance into a timeless, deeply felt cinematic experience that continues to resonate across generations. Patrick Swayze as Sam Wheat. It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you. Small Blue Diamond's subtle emotion and restraint as character tools. Patrick Swayze's portrayal of Sam Wheat is built on emotional restraint and subtle expressiveness. Swayze never overacts. His performance is grounded, internal, and understated, especially in the early part of the film. His facial expressions, especially in close-ups, do much of the heavy lifting, showing quiet conflict, unresolved emotion, and protective love. His hesitation to say "I love you" to Molly is not just romantic tension. It's a character flaw, one that shapes his emotional journey. Small Blue Diamond duality of physicality and intangibility. Playing a ghost for most of the film, Swayze's role was incredibly physical in a paradoxical way. He had to act with urgency, passion, and desperation without touching anything. The physical limitations placed on his character become emotional metaphors. He can't touch Molly, can't be heard, and can't interact. Yet Swayze finds ways to project presence, through intense eye contact, anguished expressions, and whispered longing. Small Blue Diamond chemistry with co-stars. Swayze's chemistry with Demi Moore is powerful, especially in the film's first act. Their intimacy is convincing, helped by natural rhythm in their dialogue and the iconic pottery scene. His interactions with Whoopi Goldberg, Oda Mae, are completely different, tense, chaotic, but ultimately warm. This dynamic range showcases Swayze's adaptability and emotional bandwidth. Small Blue Diamond off-screen significance. At the time, Swayze was widely known for his physicality, Dirty Dancing, Roadhouse. Ghost proved he could handle vulnerable, emotionally complex roles. His performance helped redefine him as more than just a romantic or action lead. He became a spiritual icon in cinematic history. Artist palette Demi Moore as Molly Jensen. I Love You, Sam, ditto. Small Blue Diamond mourning through stillness. Demi Moore's Molly is the heart of the film. What makes her performance exceptional is her use of silence and minimalism. Rather than dramatic outbursts, Molly mourns through quiet gestures. Her still face, her withdrawn eyes, and her slow, deliberate movements. Moore uses these tools to convey a woman whose world has shattered, without resorting to clichés of female grief. Small Blue Diamond emotional realism. Molly's grief feels real because it is not convenient or clean. Moore doesn't rush through her sadness, she sits in it, allowing the audience to see her process and refusal to let go. In scenes with Carl, her discomfort is palpable. Her performance builds tension even when she isn't saying much. This subtle realism anchors the fantasy elements of the film. She makes the idea of a ghostly romance feel believable because her reactions feel honest. Small Blue Diamond transformation through belief. Moore also manages a slow arc of disbelief to acceptance. Her moments with Oda Mae are especially critical. Her transition from skeptical woman to one who touches a ghost is played with hesitation, vulnerability, and finally, trust. This evolution would have felt absurd with a less skilled actress. Moore makes it emotionally authentic. Small Blue Diamond cultural impact. The pottery scene, sensual, spiritual, and tragic in retrospect, became one of the most iconic moments in film history. Moore's physical and emotional openness in that scene reflects Molly's total vulnerability, and it's her willingness to feel that gives Ghost its emotional weight. Crystal Ball Whoopi Goldberg as Oda Mae Brown. Molly, you in danger, girl. Small Blue Diamond comedy grounded in authenticity. Whoopi Goldberg's performance as Oda Mae Brown is legendary because it blends two polar tones, comedy and spiritual gravitas. Her comedic timing is flawless, every sarcastic comment, every exaggerated reaction is pitch perfect. But she never plays Oda Mae as a caricature. Her humor is a shield, one that breaks down when she realizes she actually can hear the dead. Shot composition and cinematic techniques. Small Blue Diamond point of view shots and ghost perspective. Zucker cleverly uses Sam's ghost perspective to show his isolation. Long takes where Sam watches Molly grieve, helpless to comfort her. Scenes where he tries to touch her but can't, filmed with deliberate distance or glass barriers to symbolize separation. Over-the-shoulder shots, slow pans, and tracking shots emphasize Sam's role as an observer, increasing the emotional tension. This POV-driven storytelling invites the audience to emotionally inhabit Sam's ghostly state, not just seeing what he sees, but feeling what he cannot do. Small Blue Diamond stillness and motion. Scenes with Molly grieving are often composed with still, lingering shots, giving her pain room to breathe. In contrast, scenes involving danger or supernatural action, such as Carl's chase or the subway ghost's teachings, are edited with quicker cuts and dynamic camera movement. This contrast in motion guides the viewer's emotional rhythm and mirrors the dual energies of Ghost, stillness in love and chaos in death. Stopwatch pacing, emotionally driven, not plot rushed. Small Blue Diamond measured progression. Zucker structures the film with a deliberate pace. He allows moments to sit. Scenes like Molly working at her pottery wheel, or Sam silently watching her, are not rushed. The silence becomes a tool, adding intimacy and sorrow. At the same time, the plot never stalls. The mystery of Carl's betrayal, The tension of Sam learning ghostly powers, and the danger to Molly all move forward steadily. Zucker interweaves these layers so that the film remains emotionally rich and narratively engaging. Small blue diamond emotional beats over exposition. Instead of long exposition dumps, Zucker lets emotional interactions convey key plot shifts. Sam's discovery that Carl had him killed is delivered in a quiet, haunting sequence, not an action-packed reveal. Molly's slow realization that Oda Mae is telling the truth is shown through disbelief, confrontation, and eventual emotional surrender, not dramatic monologues. Performing arts performance direction. Small blue diamond nurturing authenticity. Zucker, despite being known for slapstick comedy before this film, shows surprising restraint in guiding performances. He gives actors space to be vulnerable, especially Swayze and Moore. He allows scenes to unfold with natural pauses, giving performances an authentic rhythm. He also directs Whoopi Goldberg to walk the line between comic exaggeration and heartfelt sincerity. The balance she strikes between humor and pathos isn't just her talent. It's Zucker's ability to frame her as a real person, not just comic relief. Small blue diamond chemistry and intimacy. Under Zucker's direction, the chemistry between Swayze and Moore becomes palpable. Their scenes, especially the now iconic pottery scene, are intimate not just because of music and lighting, but because Zucker's direction allows real vulnerability. He lets the camera linger on touches, eye contact, and silence. Narrative vision, faith, redemption, and emotional legacy. Small blue diamond theme-driven storytelling. Zucker leans heavily into the themes of unresolved love, spiritual justice, and emotional healing. His direction ensures that these themes are not just part of the plot, but embedded in every cinematic choice. Sam's inability to say "I love you" becomes the emotional spine of the story. The ghost world isn't defined by horror, but by unfinished emotion. Justice is portrayed not through vengeance, but through moral consequence and spiritual release. Zucker elevates Ghost from a paranormal thriller to a spiritual meditation on what we leave behind and what we carry with us. Trophy legacy of direction. Despite being Jerry Zucker's first serious dramatic project, Ghost was a huge critical and box office success, grossing over $500 million worldwide. His bold genre leap, from spoof comedies to supernatural drama, paid off, earning the film 5 Academy Award nominations, winning 2, Best Supporting Actress and Best Original Screenplay. Enduring cultural legacy, with numerous references, parodies, and homages. Zucker's direction proved that genre fusion could work if handled with heart, thematic focus, and emotional sincerity. Whiteheaver checkmark conclusion. Direction that grounds the supernatural in the emotional. Jerry Zucker's work on Ghost is a masterclass in emotional storytelling through tonal balance, visual subtlety, and character-first filmmaking. He never lets the fantasy overpower the feeling. Every stylistic choice, from shadowed lighting to still camera framing, serves the film's emotional truth. Through careful pacing, nuanced performances, and a consistent spiritual vision, Zucker created a film that doesn't just entertain. It lingers, like a spirit that refuses to fade. Lighting, a symbolic contrast between life and afterlife. From the very first scenes, Ghost establishes 2 distinct visual palettes. Warm, golden tones for scenes depicting love, connection, and earthly comfort. Cool, desaturated, and shadowy tones for the afterlife, fear, or separation. Key examples. In the early scenes of Sam and Molly's life together, the lighting is soft and romantic, especially in the iconic pottery wheel sequence. The use of warm ambient lighting emphasizes emotional intimacy and timeless love. After Sam's death, Greenberg shifts the color tone to Bloy, grayer hues, visually signaling his transition from life to ghosthood. This shift is never jarring but emotionally resonant, making the audience feel Sam's isolation from the living world. The contrast in lighting mirrors the emotional trajectory, love and loss, presence and absence, warmth and coldness. This is a classic, symbolic use of cinematography to echo the film's themes. Camera with flash framing and composition, emotion through visual distance. Greenberg's framing choices are vital in emphasizing emotional distance and longing. When Sam dies and becomes a ghost, scenes involving Molly are often shot through windows, doorways, or from across the room. These visual barriers reflect the emotional and physical gulf between them. Sam's inability to touch or speak is reinforced by compositions that isolate him in the frame, often placing him at the edge or behind objects, symbolizing his ghostly displacement. In contrast, earlier scenes, when Sam is alive, feature close, intimate framing, tight shots on hands, eyes, and body language, creating a sense of warmth and togetherness. Cinematic technique tip. This shift from tight intimacy to detached perspective mirrors Sam's spiritual journey and his struggle to reconnect with the world he's lost. Film #camera movement, stillness and energy. Greenberg and director Jerry Zucker use stillness effectively in the film's most emotional scenes. For example, during Molly's grieving moments, the camera often lingers without cuts, letting her pain unfold in real time. This gives the audience room to absorb the emotional weight. In contrast, during action-driven sequences, such as when Sam follows Carl or trains to interact with objects, the camera moves with urgency, with subtle tracking shots or handheld vibrations to create momentum. Balancing genres through editorial rhythm. One of the biggest achievements of Ghost is how the editing handles its genre blending. Romantic beats are patient and tender. Thriller elements are tight and suspenseful. Comic scenes with Oda Mae are punchy but not intrusive. The editing rhythm carefully modulates these tones, making the film tonally cohesive despite its variety of moods. Memo conclusion: emotional editing at its best. Ghost, 1990, showcases emotionally intelligent editing, guided by Walter Mitty's precise timing and sensitivity to the story's emotional arcs. The film flows with a natural rhythm. Slow when intimacy is needed, tight when suspense escalates, still when grief settles in, and urgent when lives are at stake. This editorial strategy creates an immersive and emotionally resonant experience, elevating the film beyond a typical romantic thriller. It's a masterclass in how editing can shape not just narrative clarity, but emotional rhythm, leaving audiences deeply moved and fully engaged. Maurice Jarre's score, a lyrical language of emotion. Maurice Jarre, known for his epic compositions in films like Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago, took a more restrained and intimate approach in Ghost. His score is subtle but emotionally rich, acting as an invisible character that guides the audience through grief, love, suspense, and hope. The orchestral elements are often soft, ambient, and melodic, using strings and gentle piano tones to evoke tenderness and longing. Jarre avoids bombastic themes. Instead, he lets emotion guide the music, never overpowering the scene but enhancing the underlying feeling. The main theme, which recurs throughout the film in various forms, is minimalistic yet powerful, echoing the supernatural tone with a sense of spiritual melancholy. Musical note: the score becomes a musical reflection of Sam's journey, from love and death to acceptance and transcendence. Red Heart # Unchained melody, more than a love song. No discussion of Ghost's music is complete without highlighting the use of Unchained melody by the Righteous Brothers. Originally released in 1965, the song found a second life through Ghost, becoming synonymous with romance, loss, and longing. It is first heard in the iconic pottery scene, where the sensual intimacy between Sam and Molly is heightened by the music. The slow tempo and nostalgic quality of the song turn a simple act into one of cinema's most memorable love scenes. The song recurs thematically, often subtly woven into the score as a motif representing their undying love. The final goodbye scene also echoes this song's emotional register, bringing the narrative full circle with a sense of closure. This careful repetition allows the audience to associate the melody with the eternal bond between the characters, even beyond death. # musical silence and restraint. One of the most overlooked but brilliant aspects of Ghost's sound design is when the music pulls back. Maurice Jarre uses silence or minimalist soundscapes in key moments to heighten emotion and tension. When Sam first realizes he's dead, there's no sweeping musical cue, only ambient sound, allowing the shock to settle in both for the character and the audience. During scenes where Sam watches over Molly in grief or attempts to connect with her through Oda Mae, the music remains low, ambient, and ghost-like, mirroring his helpless state. This restrained approach gives the film a haunting stillness, avoiding melodrama and allowing real emotion to emerge organically. Ghost score and supernatural tension. Jarre also adds lightly dissonant tones and eerie sound textures during supernatural sequences, especially those involving ghosts, spirits, or danger. The scenes where shadowy demons drag away villains like Willie and Carl are enhanced with unsettling, low-frequency soundscapes. These musical choices heighten the paranormal mood without relying on horror tropes. Instead of jump scares, the music leans into spiritual unease and cosmic justice. The score never tells the audience how to feel too bluntly. It suggests, reinforces, and subtly nudges the emotional tone rather than demanding it. Milky Way emotional arcs mirrored in musical progression. The structure of Jarre's score mirrors the film's emotional journey. Love and light in the early moments with warm, soft compositions. Shock and sadness after Sam's death, using minor keys and somber tones. Tension and urgency during the investigation and confrontations with Carl. Peace and transcendence in the final scenes, where the music becomes uplifting and almost ethereal. This arc allows the music to track the emotional beats of the story almost in real time, adding depth without distraction. DVD legacy of the soundtrack. The impact of Ghost's soundtrack is lasting. Unchained Melody topped charts again after the film's release and became culturally inseparable from the film. Maurice Jarre's score received widespread praise and contributed to the film's Oscar-winning success. Whoopi Goldberg won Best Supporting Actress, and Bruce Joel Rubin won Best Original Screenplay. Even today, decades later, the music of Ghost is remembered as one of the key reasons the film still resonates. The perfect balance between score, song, silence, and emotion made the soundtrack a vital storytelling tool rather than background filler. Clapperboard conclusion: music that haunts the heart. In Ghost, 1990, the soundtrack and score aren't just supporting elements, they are emotional pillars. Maurice Jarre's delicate, spiritual compositions and the unforgettable use of Unchained Melody elevate the film from a supernatural romance to a timeless, deeply human story of love, loss, and connection. The music doesn't overpower, it haunts, comforts, and lingers, much like the ghostly protagonist himself. Ghost, 1990. Soundtrack and score, a deep dive into sonic storytelling. Small Blue Diamond composer, Maurice Jarre. Small Blue Diamond iconic track, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. Violin 1. Maurice Jarre's compositional philosophy, scoring the invisible. Maurice Jarre approached Ghost with the intent to compose for emotions, not just scenes. His work acts as a ghostly whisper throughout the film, echoing Sam's unseen presence, Molly's grief, and the ethereal limbo between life and death. Unlike his large-scale orchestral work in epics, Jarre chose a more chamber-style arrangement for Ghost. He relied heavily on synthesizers blended with traditional instruments, a style Jarre pioneered in his later career. Soft string harmonies representing emotional tenderness. Low-register piano motifs to depict moments of grief, regret, and spiritual transition. Jarre's decision to restrain orchestral excess allowed the audience to experience emotions more intimately. The music doesn't announce drama, it shadows it. Bell 2. Thematic motifs, echoes of love, time, and separation. Jarre created recurring musical phrases, each associated with a different emotional state or theme. The Sam and Molly theme, gentle, minor key motifs that recur in moments of connection, even after Sam's death. These motifs emphasize love transcending physical form. The spirit realm cues, ambient and spectral in tone, often created with soft electronic textures and echoic synth pads, suggesting the otherworldly nature of Sam's new existence. The danger I conflict cues, dissonant synths and tight percussive pulses underscore Carl's betrayal and the shadowy antagonists. These are brief and don't dominate the score, as tension is kept psychological. These themes develop subtly over the course of the film, often morphing to match Sam's emotional evolution, from confusion to sorrow, then acceptance and transcendence. Optical Disc 3. Unchained Melody. Music as memory, love, and legacy. The inclusion of Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers was a brilliant narrative and emotional device. Director Jerry Zucker used this track not as background music, but as a recurring emotional symbol. Key functions. Emotional trigger. The song is used to represent Sam and Molly's shared past, their love, passion, and physical closeness. Its first major use during the pottery scene instantly etched itself into cinematic history. Haunting memory. After Sam's death, the melody becomes a haunting echo, reinforcing what Molly has lost. Whenever it resurfaces, it brings Sam closer, even when unseen. Closure and release. The song re-emerges in the final scene when Sam says goodbye, helping to bookend their journey and turn grief into grace. The song wasn't just a hit, it became emotionally iconic, topping charts again in 1990 due to the film. It has since become synonymous with the idea of love that lingers beyond life. Speaker Off 4. The power of silence and negative space. Jarre's musical mastery includes knowing when not to score a scene. After Sam's death, there are scenes where no music plays at all, heightening the emotional discomfort and shock. This creative silence lets ambient sounds, like city streets, Molly's breathing, or ghostly whispers, amplify grief or suspense. Jarre allows moments of vulnerability, like Molly's solitary scenes or Sam's silent heartbreak, to unfold without interference, showing confidence in emotional pacing. Silence, here, acts as a mirror to absence, both Sam's and Molly's emptiness. Ear 5. Musical texture, layering, and sound design integration. Jar's score is uniquely woven into the sound design of the film. He collaborated closely with the sound mixing team to ensure seamless transitions between diegetic, on-screen sounds and musical cues. For instance, when Sam passes through objects or walls, Jar's music becomes sonically distorted, with subtle warping to create an auditory sense of phasing. When Oda Mae acts as a medium, the music bends slightly toward playful motifs, using minor staccato plucks and mischievous instrumentals to match Whoopi Goldberg's energy, while still respecting the spiritual context. This integration blurs the line between score and sound effects, making the supernatural experience sonically immersive. Dove-6. Emotional progression and spiritual resolution through music. Jar's music traces Sam's arc not just narratively but spiritually. Beginning, warmth and love dominate the sound. Middle, cold, isolated, synth-heavy ambience reflects Sam's disconnection from the living. Climax, musical tension builds with dissonant chords as Carl's treachery peaks. Finale, the music resolves into angelic harmonies and rising melodies as Sam ascends into the afterlife, echoing peace, resolution, and eternal love. It's one of the rare scores that evolves with the protagonist's metaphysical journey, echoing both internal and external transformation. Trophy 7. Legacy and recognition. Though Jar's Ghost score wasn't nominated for an Oscar, it has earned lasting acclaim for its subtle genius. Meanwhile, Unchained Melody became Billboard's #1 single again in 1990, is frequently listed among the most romantic songs in cinema history. Helped the Ghost soundtrack album go multi-platinum globally. Today, even people who haven't seen Ghost recognize the emotion behind the music, a testament to its cultural resonance. Conclusion. Soundtrack as soul. The music of Ghost, 1990, is more than just an auditory backdrop. It is the emotional and spiritual soul of the film. Maurice Jarre's score, combined with Unchained Melody, creates a haunting and deeply romantic soundscape that continues to resonate with audiences. Rather than manipulate feelings, the soundtrack reflects them. It grieves, yearns, comforts, and uplifts, just like the story itself. In a film about love, loss, and the afterlife, the music becomes the bridge between worlds, a melody that lingers long after the final scene fades to white. Love beyond death. It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you. At its heart, Ghost is a story about a love so powerful it endures even after physical death. Sam's connection to Molly does not end with his murder. It intensifies as he watches over her, protects her, and ultimately finds peace by reaffirming their bond. The film makes a poignant statement. True love is spiritual, not confined by the body, time, or space. This theme is communicated through Sam's refusal to move on until Molly is safe and aware of his love. The emotional climax where he says goodbye, reinforcing the belief that emotional connections survive even when physical presence is lost. The audience is left contemplating the idea that love is eternal, and perhaps, in the end, the most transcendent force of all. Small Blue Diamond 2. Grief and healing. Molly's grief is portrayed with authenticity and restraint. She doesn't collapse into melodrama but drifts through quiet numbness and slow healing. The film suggests that healing from loss is a process, aided not just by time but by moments of truth, closure, and revelation. Oda Mae Brown becomes a bridge, not just to Sam, but to Molly's emotional recovery. Through her, the grieving are reminded that connection can come in unexpected ways, and that acceptance of loss doesn't mean forgetting. It means understanding, honoring, and moving forward. Small Blue Diamond 3. Justice and moral accountability. Ghost also weaves a moral thread about actions and consequences, especially through the betrayal subplot involving Carl. Carl's treachery, motivated by greed, leads to Sam's death. But his arc illustrates that evil, no matter how carefully concealed, eventually collapses under the weight of guilt and divine justice. The shadowy, demonic spirits that drag him away in the end represent a metaphysical form of karmic retribution, symbolic of inner darkness manifesting into eternal punishment. Through this, the film explores the consequences of unchecked ambition, the price of betrayal, the idea that injustice may go unseen by the world, but not by the universe. Small Blue Diamond 4. The afterlife and spiritual continuity. The film doesn't force a particular religious view of the afterlife, but presents a universal spiritual framework. Good souls are rewarded with light and peace. Evil souls are consumed by darkness. Ghosts remain behind due to unfinished business or unresolved emotions. This portrayal raises existential questions. What happens after death? What keeps a soul tethered to earth? How can someone find closure when their story ends prematurely? Rather than giving definitive answers, the film uses Sam's journey to suggest that the spirit is driven by purpose and love, and that closure is the key to liberation. Small Blue Diamond 5. Faith, Belief, and Skepticism. Oda Mae's character arc carries its own message. As a fraudulent medium who unexpectedly discovers she really can hear the dead, her journey touches on the tension between belief and disbelief. At first, she is overwhelmed, skeptical of her own gift. But as she learns to embrace it, the film suggests that faith, whether in oneself, in love, or in forces beyond understanding, can be transformative. Molly, too, struggles to believe in Sam's spiritual presence until irrefutable evidence forces her to confront the truth. This shows how love and faith can overpower even the most rational skepticism. Small Blue Diamond 6. Redemption and Transformation. Sam's death catalyzes his transformation. In life, he was cautious, emotionally guarded, often unable to say "I love you" to Molly. In death, he learns to express his emotions, to fight for what matters, and to let go with peace and clarity. The film proposes that even after the end of physical life, there is room for emotional and spiritual evolution, a rare and beautiful message in cinema. Sam redeems his silence with action and his distance with connection. Small Blue Diamond 7. Communication and Emotional Vulnerability. Another major theme is the struggle to express feelings. Sam repeatedly says ditto instead of "I love you" while alive, afraid of vulnerability. His death creates an urgent need to say what he never did. This emotional blockage becomes a metaphor for how people often delay or suppress their deepest feelings until it's too late. The film encourages viewers to express love while they can, speak truthfully, and often, not wait for loss to realize what mattered most. Clapperboard Conclusion, a spiritual and emotional legacy. Ghost, 1990, stands the test of time not only because of its romance or supernatural intrigue, but because it delivers universal messages with sincerity and emotional authenticity. It's a film that teaches. Love is eternal. Closure is essential. Justice will find its way. The soul is more than its earthly vessel. And perhaps most of all, don't wait to say "I love you." These themes are never over-explained or forced. Instead, they emerge naturally from the story's emotional core, leaving audiences with both tears and timeless truths. A pioneering use of early CGI techniques. One of the most memorable aspects of the film's visual identity is its depiction of Sam's ghostly abilities, walking through doors, interacting with objects via sheer force of will, and moving between planes of existence. These sequences relied heavily on early digital compositing and optical effects, which, by 1990 standards, were groundbreaking. For example, when Sam passes through a door or object, the semi-translucent layering effect, combined with motion blur and color filtering, simulates his immaterial form. The train ghost scene, where a ghost forcibly teaches Sam how to interact with the physical world, required rotoscoping, layering, and practical wirework seamlessly integrated into the environment. While modern viewers may find some of these effects dated, at the time, they were state-of-the-art and helped create a unique visual experience that grounded the metaphysical in a believable way. Small Blue Diamond, The Shadowy Demons, Horror Without Gore. A particularly haunting use of effects comes in the form of the shadowy spirits that drag evil souls, like Willie and Carl, into the darkness. These creatures emerge from the shadows in a visually abstract and unnerving manner, with warped silhouettes, animated through shadow puppetry, rotoscoping, and digitally enhanced sound design. A use of lighting and shadow distortion that feels more like nightmare imagery than standard horror visuals. Their design intentionally avoids gore or physical horror and instead leans into the psychological terror of damnation, making it more effective and lasting. The eerie sound effects and absence of a clear form give these sequences a spiritual dread that resonates with the film's themes of morality and the afterlife. Small Blue Diamond Practical Effects, Grounding the Supernatural. In many instances, Ghost relies on practical effects to create interactions between the living and the dead. Objects are moved using invisible wires or magnetic rigs to show Sam's growing ability to affect the physical world. Oda Mae's channeling sequences are heightened with lighting shifts and subtle makeup changes, enhancing the realism without breaking immersion. The iconic pottery wheel scene blends sensuality and supernatural presence with elegance, entirely devoid of visual effects, proving that emotional impact can be achieved without heavy reliance on CGI. The decision to keep effects subtle and practical in many emotional scenes ensured that the audience's attention remained on character dynamics, not spectacle. Small Blue Diamond, ghostly movement and levitation. The floating, hovering, and vanishing of ghost characters were achieved through wire-work, carefully masked during post-production. Slow-motion filming techniques, giving spirits a slightly off-kilter, otherworldly movement. Early morphing and fade transitions, subtly used when spirits pass on or materialize disappear. These effects weren't flashy but were executed with restraint, aiming for emotional symbolism rather than visual extravagance. When Sam finally ascends into the light, the scene feels ethereal and moving, a testament to how visual effects can deepen a story's emotional weight when used with care. Small Blue Diamond limitations as strengths. While the film had access to only early-stage CGI by modern standards, the limitations led to innovative problem-solving. Instead of over-relying on digital wizardry, the filmmakers found creative analog solutions, blending physical stunts, camera tricks, and post-production layering. As a result, the film doesn't feel burdened by outdated technology, but rather uses its tools wisely to support the narrative rather than distract from it. In many ways, these limitations prevented the film from aging poorly. Compared to over-CGI-laden films from the early 2000s, Ghost's effects still feel emotionally grounded and narratively purposeful. Clapperboard conclusion: emotionally driven effects that still resonate. The visual effects in Ghost 1990 were revolutionary for their time, not because of sheer spectacle, but because of how seamlessly they served the story. Whether it's the sadness in Sam's transparent figure, the terror of shadowy demons, or the quiet intimacy of a ghostly touch, the visuals work in harmony with the emotional and thematic beats of the film. Rather than showcasing effects for their own sake, director Jerry Zucker and his team used every visual trick as a tool for amplifying love, loss, fear, and redemption. This restraint and purpose are precisely why Ghost remains visually effective more than 3 decades later. The film's Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects was well-deserved, and to this day, Ghost serves as an example of how story-driven visual effects, even when technically simple, can achieve timeless power. A New York that feels lived in. Much of Ghost takes place in New York City, a setting that naturally brings a bustling, grounded atmosphere. However, the filmmakers did not rely on flashy skyscrapers or landmarks. Instead, they focused on intimate urban spaces that reflect the characters' emotional lives. The Soho loft shared by Sam, Patrick Swayze, and Molly, Demi Moore, is perhaps the film's most iconic location. With its exposed brick walls, partially renovated interior, open floor plan, and artist's work area, the loft reflects both characters' personalities, Sam's practical grounding and Molly's creative spirit. This apartment becomes more than a location. It transforms into a symbol of love, memory, and loss. After Sam's death, its emptiness and silence amplify Molly's grief. The familiarity of the space also makes Sam's ghostly presence feel more intimate and heartbreaking. The apartment design subtly evolves through the story. It begins vibrant and sunlit, then gradually takes on colder lighting and starker visuals, aligning with the narrative's emotional decline. It becomes a visual echo chamber for Sam's longing and Molly's sorrow. Small Blue Diamond contrasting spaces, spiritual realms and earthly dangers. Ghost also uses contrasting environments to highlight emotional and moral dichotomies. The dark alleyway where Sam is murdered is shadowy, grimy, and claustrophobic, far from the light-filled loft. It's filmed with a sense of immediacy and danger, introducing the audience to the harsh reality of urban crime and the beginning of Sam's transformation into a ghost. The subway station, where Sam encounters the train ghost, is another standout. Gritty and haunting, this underground world feels like a liminal space, a threshold between the living and the dead. The cold concrete, flickering lights, and distant echoes create a tone of isolation and despair, emphasizing the ghostly purgatory Sam now inhabits. In contrast, scenes involving Oda Mae Brown's psychic parlor bring in a more colorful, chaotic, and humorous design. Her office is cluttered with stereotypical fortune teller props, crystal balls, beads, incense, but the exaggerated decor also hints at her fraudulent lifestyle before discovering her real abilities. Small Blue Diamond production design that enhances mood. The film's production design team, led by Jane Muskie, production designer, did an exceptional job of creating a visual tone that shifts with the narrative. As the story becomes more emotionally intense and spiritually rich, the environments follow suit, subtly mirroring these changes. Lighting is used in tandem with set design. sunlight streaming into the loft during tender moments, then disappearing into gloomy shadows during scenes of loss or fear. Props within the set serve as symbolic objects, unfinished sculptures, shared photos, Sam's belongings, all of which emphasize memory and emotional continuity between the worlds of the living and the dead. Even the corporate office where Sam works is sterile and impersonal, reinforcing the contrast between his career-driven life and the warmth of his relationship with Molly. Small Blue Diamond aesthetic consistency and believability. What makes Ghost stand out in terms of set design is its consistency and restraint. The film avoids overly fantastical settings for the supernatural and instead maintains a believable urban realism throughout. This decision not only makes the ghostly elements more impactful when they appear, but it also allows the audience to emotionally invest in the story without being pulled out by overly theatrical environments. The hospital setting, where Sam first discovers his death, is designed with clinical precision but is not overly dramatized. It reinforces the confusion and helplessness of his situation. The final ascension scene is perhaps the most stylistically distinct moment, bathed in a heavenly glow that visually departs from the rest of the film. But even here, the surrounding environment remains grounded, allowing the spiritual transition to feel personal and profound rather than fantastical. Clapperboard conclusion: a world both real and reflective. In Ghost, the set design and locations are not just functional backdrops. They are emotional spaces that shape the viewer's understanding of the story's themes: love, loss, redemption, and spiritual presence. The carefully curated urban settings, contrasting environments, and evolving visual tone all contribute to a world that feels both real and reflective of its characters' inner journeys. By grounding its supernatural story in tangible, emotionally resonant spaces, Ghost manages to craft a cinematic world where the invisible feels present, and where every room, alley, or subway corridor carries the weight of memory and meaning. Ghost, 1990. Dialogue and script, emotion, eternity, and echoes of the afterlife. The screenplay of Ghost, 1990, written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, is widely regarded as one of the most emotionally resonant and thematically powerful scripts of the 1990s. The dialogue doesn't merely carry the plot forward. It becomes a vessel for love, grief, humor, and existential wonder. Through naturalistic exchanges, poetic declarations, and iconic lines, the film's script elevates the supernatural love story into something universal and timeless. Naturalism rooted in emotion. From its opening scenes, Ghost establishes a conversational and believably modern tone between its main characters, Sam, Patrick Swayze, and Molly, Demi Moore. Their exchanges feel unforced and organic, capturing the everyday intimacy of a couple in love. The film wisely avoids melodrama in these early moments, instead grounding their relationship in banter and subtle affection, which makes Sam's later death all the more tragic. The dialogue in these scenes isn't overly showy, but it is meaningful in context, showing love rather than overly telling it. For example, Molly, I love you. Sam, ditto. This small but unforgettable exchange becomes a core emotional motif of the film. Sam's inability to say I love you in traditional terms becomes symbolic of emotional restraint and the things left unsaid, adding poignant weight to their love story. The word ditto echoes throughout the film, culminating in its tearful, spiritual payoff in the final scene. Small Blue Diamond poetic and impactful writing. Rubin's script also carries a poetic undercurrent, especially in moments of transition between life and death. Dialogue spoken by Sam after his death carries an ethereal tone that complements the film's supernatural themes. When Sam finally tells Molly I love you at the end, and she responds with ditto, the moment is profound not because of florid language, but because of the emotional build-up and minimalism that defines the script. The script often uses silence, pauses, and visual cues alongside dialogue, allowing the audience to feel what the characters feel without over-explaining. It's a mark of confidence and restraint, both in writing and direction. Small Blue Diamond humor that balances grief. One of the film's great tonal achievements is its ability to balance supernatural drama and heartbreak with bursts of humor, mostly delivered through Whoopi Goldberg's character, Oda Mae Brown. Her lines are sharp, funny, and grounded in realism, preventing the film from becoming overly somber. Oda Mae's incredulous reactions to Sam's ghostly intrusions provide natural comic relief. For example, I don't know you. I don't want to know you. Bye. Her back and forth with Sam is punchy, fast-paced, and genuinely funny, while still serving the story and character development. This humor never feels out of place. It's woven seamlessly into the fabric of the script, showing how humor can exist even in grief and fear. Small Blue Diamond memorable lines and cultural impact. Several lines from Ghost have become culturally iconic, not only because of the performances, but because of their timing and emotional power within the script. "It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you." This line, spoken by Sam at the film's conclusion, encapsulates the spiritual core of the story. It affirms that love transcends death, not through abstract philosophy, but through personal emotional truth. Ditto. As simple as it is, this one word became a signature expression of eternal love thanks to its repeated and symbolic use in the film. It became part of pop culture, imitated and referenced in countless shows and movies. The strength of Ghost lies in how these lines earn their emotional weight. They aren't just quotable, they resonate deeply because they are built upon layers of emotional development and character connection. Small Blue Diamond dialogue that serves theme and character. The dialogue in Ghost serves not only to entertain or inform, it reinforces the film's deeper themes. The fragility of life, the endurance of love, the tension between belief and skepticism, the existence of an unseen spiritual world. Each character's way of speaking reflects their worldview. Sam is reserved and emotionally cautious, making his posthumous growth more impactful. Molly is vulnerable yet grounded, expressing grief in honest, painful language. Oda Mae is cynical, comedic, and eventually sincere, evolving through her dialogue from a con artist to a true believer. Clapperboard conclusion, a script that echoes beyond the screen. The dialogue and script of Ghost, 1990, are not just functional. They are emotionally evocative, narratively sharp, and culturally resonant. Bruce Joel Rubin's writing never sacrifices depth for sentimentality. Instead, it finds the universal in the personal, turning a supernatural romance into a timeless meditation on love, loss, and the invisible threads that connect us. In the hands of a lesser writer, Ghost could have felt like a genre pastiche. But with Rubin's masterful script, it became a genre-defying classic, anchored in moments of humor, heartbreak, silence, and that unforgettable word, ditto. Romance, at the heart of the film. The emotional core of Ghost lies in its romantic narrative, which remains faithful to genre conventions in many ways. The relationship between Sam, Patrick Swayze, and Molly, Demi Moore, is the film's anchor. Their love, abruptly cut short by Sam's untimely death, drives the entire plot forward. The romantic genre's central theme, love overcoming obstacles, is elevated to metaphysical levels as Sam tries to protect and communicate with Molly even from the afterlife. This eternal love story culminates in a cathartic farewell scene that encapsulates the message of love beyond death, adhering to the emotional resolution expected in romance films. However, Ghost subverts traditional romantic storytelling by flipping the trope of love conquers all into love conquers death, introducing a supernatural framework that refreshes an otherwise familiar premise. Small Blue Diamond supernatural fantasy, reinventing the afterlife on screen. The film reimagines the afterlife in a way that felt original at the time. Ghosts, angels, and demonic forces are shown in grounded, believable ways that blend spiritual mythology with urban realism. The rules of the supernatural world, how ghosts interact with the living, influence the physical realm, or ascend, are explained subtly throughout the narrative. The ghost train scene, the subway ghost, Vincent Schiavelli, and the visualizations of death and judgment are fantastical, yet never cartoonish or exaggerated. While fantasy films of the era often leaned into escapism or spectacle, Ghost uses the supernatural to explore themes of unfinished business, justice, and spiritual closure, giving the genre a more mature emotional depth. Small Blue Diamond thriller and crime, a murder mystery with purpose. A significant portion of the film's tension comes from its thriller subplot, involving betrayal, conspiracy, and a race against time. Carl, Tony Goldwyn, Sam's supposed best friend, emerges as the villain behind Sam's murder, and this revelation unfolds in true thriller fashion. The plot involving money laundering, corporate crime, and the pursuit of Molly's life adds narrative momentum and suspense, keeping viewers invested beyond the love story. While some of the thriller elements follow conventional beats, such as the corrupt best friend and the helpless heroine in danger, Ghost blends these tropes effectively into the supernatural narrative, ensuring the suspense feels earned and emotionally grounded. Small Blue Diamond comedy, Whoopi Goldberg's game-changing contribution. The inclusion of Oda Mae Brown, played by Whoopi Goldberg, who won an Oscar for her performance, brings comic relief that cleverly balances the film's darker and more emotional moments. Her character, a fraudulent psychic who suddenly becomes a real medium, injects humor through sarcasm, disbelief, and high-energy reactions to the ghostly chaos around her. Her comedic style is never out of place. In fact, it elevates the film's accessibility, allowing audiences to breathe and engage emotionally without being overwhelmed. This balance of humor in an otherwise sentimental and tense story subverts genre expectations, especially in supernatural thrillers, where comedy is rarely executed so organically. Small Blue Diamond genre hybridization, risky, but rewarding. Ghost is a rare film that thrives by embracing genre fusion. While this can often lead to tonal inconsistency, Jerry Zucker maintains a delicate equilibrium. Suspense is gripping but not overly intense. Romance is touching but never melodramatic. Fantasy is imaginative but believable. Humor is frequent but never detracts from the story. This hybrid nature was a risk at the time, especially since Zucker was primarily known for comedies like Airplane. But that risk paid off, as audiences responded positively to a film that gave them tears, thrills, laughs, and spiritual catharsis all at once. Small Blue Diamond avoidance of cliches. While Ghost does contain familiar genre elements, a tragic love story, a ghost seeking justice, a corrupt best friend, it avoids becoming cliché by the strength of its emotional storytelling and character-driven focus. The spiritual themes, clever use of ghost rules, and grounded performances prevent the film from slipping into genre predictability. Even the famous pottery scene, which has been endlessly parodied, worked in context as a deeply sensual and symbolic moment of connection between the characters. Clapperboard conclusion, a genre-defying classic. Ghost, 1990, doesn't just execute one genre, it reinvents several. It blends romance, supernatural fantasy, thriller, and comedy into a cohesive, emotionally powerful narrative. Rather than being limited by genre boundaries, the film transcends them, becoming a story about love, loss, and spiritual endurance that continues to resonate with audiences worldwide. Its success lies in its confidence. Ghost trusts the audience to follow it across tones and genres, knowing that at its center lies something all viewers understand: the desperate, undying need to connect with someone you love, even after death. Capitalism, greed, and moral corruption. Set in the heart of corporate New York, Ghost indirectly critiques the materialistic culture of late 80s and early 90s America, a period known for its corporate greed and financial scandals. The character of Carl Brunner, who orchestrates Sam's murder to cover up a laundering operation, embodies the dangers of unchecked ambition and moral bankruptcy. The film illustrates how the pursuit of wealth at any cost can lead to betrayal, crime, and spiritual ruin. Carl's downfall is not only legal but also metaphysical, as his death is marked by literal demonic drag-downs, symbolizing karmic retribution. This plotline echoes the Wall Street mentality of the time, where financial manipulation and betrayal were common headlines. The film doesn't preach anti-capitalist ideals, but it uses Carl's arc to highlight ethical decay within high finance, making a subtle yet effective cultural statement. Spirituality versus skepticism, the search for faith. One of Ghost's most powerful and enduring themes is the portrayal of life after death, which serves as a metaphor for society's conflicted relationship with spirituality. In the 1990s, American culture was increasingly caught between traditional religious beliefs and rising secularism. Ghost navigates this by presenting the afterlife not through religious dogma but through emotional truth and metaphysical justice. The idea that actions in life, good or bad, have spiritual consequences reflects a moral philosophy rooted in both Western and Eastern beliefs, without aligning with any one religion. This spiritual framework allowed the film to appeal to a broad audience, tapping into a universal longing for connection, justice, and the hope that love transcends mortality. Performing arts, race, and representation. The impact of Oda Mae Brown. One of the most notable aspects of Ghost's cultural commentary is the inclusion of Oda Mae Brown, played by Whoopi Goldberg, a black woman in a pivotal role that defied many Hollywood norms of the time. In a film dominated by white leads and a traditional romantic narrative, Oda Mae is not only the comic relief but also the moral and emotional catalyst of the story. Her transformation from a fraudulent psychic to a genuine medium gives her agency, depth, and a full character arc. The character avoids being a stereotype. Instead, she breaks boundaries by being both hilarious and essential to the plot's spiritual resolution. That said, some critics have observed that her role as the magical helper to white protagonists reflects a recurring Hollywood trope known as the magical Negro, where a person of color exists primarily to aid the spiritual journey of a white character. However, Goldberg's layered performance and the film's narrative reliance on her choices add nuance, making Oda Mae feel more autonomous and central than most similar characters in that mold. Her performance also earned her an Academy Award, marking a cultural milestone for representation in mainstream cinema. Straight couple with heart gender dynamics, love, loss, and female vulnerability. The emotional thrust of Ghost comes from Molly's grief, as she navigates the loss of Sam and faces real-world threats without him. In doing so, the film presents a nuanced portrayal of female vulnerability and strength. Molly is never reduced to a helpless damsel. Her emotional resilience and quiet strength challenge the idea that women must move on quickly after loss or rely solely on others for protection. However, the film also doesn't shy away from showing how female grief and fear can be exploited, especially by those in positions of trust, such as Carl. This layered portrayal reflects shifting gender roles in early 90s cinema, where women were beginning to be shown not just as romantic leads but as individuals navigating emotional complexity and independence. Scales hash justice beyond the legal system. One of the film's most compelling commentaries lies in its treatment of justice. Sam, as a ghost, is unable to rely on human law enforcement to solve his murder. Instead, the film creates a metaphysical system of cosmic justice, where good souls ascend and evil ones are dragged into darkness. This system offers poetic justice, a concept that resonates with those who feel real-world justice often fails. The demonic shadows that take Carl and Willie are both visually haunting and thematically loaded, symbolizing the inescapability of one's moral choices. In a time when public trust in the justice system was declining due to high-profile failures and corruption scandals, this metaphysical resolution delivered emotional closure and spiritual accountability that audiences found satisfying. Grief, closure, and human connection. The film's deeper message centers around grief and the difficulty of letting go. Ghost acknowledges the pain of unresolved love, unfinished goodbyes, and the longing to know that the person you've lost is still with you. Sam's inability to say "I love you" while alive becomes a haunting emotional anchor, resolved only at the end when he finally says it, and Molly hears it. This emotional arc mirrors how people process grief in the real world, holding on to memories, seeking signs, and ultimately learning to move forward without forgetting. This theme struck a universal chord, particularly with audiences dealing with personal loss, making Ghost not just a story of love, but of emotional healing and spiritual reassurance. Clapperboard conclusion. A quiet but impactful commentary. While Ghost, 1990, doesn't directly address politics or push aggressive social critiques, its layered narrative offers rich reflections on spirituality, morality, love, justice, and representation. By embedding these ideas in a highly emotional, accessible story, the film invites viewers to think deeply without feeling preached to. Its greatest achievement may lie in how effortlessly it wraps serious themes in the language of mainstream entertainment, making it one of the most emotionally resonant and thematically meaningful films of its time. Ghost, 1990. Social and cultural commentary, expanded analysis. Ghost operates within the framework of a supernatural love story, but beneath its genre trappings, it offers multi-layered reflections on issues deeply rooted in society, both timeless and era-specific. These include the tension between faith and skepticism, the spiritual aftermath of grief, the racial dynamics of Hollywood, the exploitative nature of capitalism, and the broader human need for closure and connection. Through a story of loss and redemption, Ghost becomes a poignant cultural artifact that resonates far beyond its romantic plotline. Globe with Meridians 1. Spirituality, the afterlife and the human longing for meaning. In the context of a society becoming increasingly secular by the 1990s, Ghost taps into a collective spiritual curiosity. The film presents a non-denominational spiritual cosmology where the afterlife is real, where souls face consequences, and where love forms a metaphysical tether between worlds. The portrayal of heaven and hell, light versus shadowy demons, isn't rooted in any particular religion, making the narrative accessible to broad audiences regardless of belief. This reflects the New Age spiritual movement popular during the late 1980s and early 1990s, when Americans were increasingly exploring alternative spirituality, psychics, and ideas of reincarnation. The central conflict between letting go and holding on, Sam lingering on Earth, parallels grieving processes and the human hope that something exists beyond death. This spiritual narrative provided emotional reassurance to viewers struggling with personal loss, allowing them to emotionally connect to the film's core question. What happens after we die? An enduring cultural concern. Moneybag 2. Greed, corporate corruption, and the American capitalist critique. The story hinges on a classic betrayal. Sam is murdered by his best friend Carl, who's entangled in laundering dirty money through their banking firm. This subplot is a direct commentary on Wall Street-era corporate corruption, emblematic of the Reagan-Bush years where deregulation led to high-profile financial crimes. Carl is a slick, seemingly trustworthy friend-turned-traitor, a character archetype mirroring real-world stories of insider fraud and Ponzi schemes. His actions showcase how capitalism, when detached from ethics, leads to personal ruin and societal harm. The film indirectly critiques the prioritization of profit over human life, as Sam's death is a mere consequence of Carl's greed. By not turning this into a didactic or preachy subplot, the film lets Carl's arc serve as a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition and the spiritual emptiness that often accompanies material excess. Woman medium dark skin tone emoji modifier #3. Race, power, and Oda Mae Brown's disruptive presence. Oda Mae Brown, played by Whoopi Goldberg, is a rare instance of a black woman leading a pivotal role in a mainstream supernatural romance, particularly in a genre that historically centers white characters. On the surface, she may seem like comic relief, but she becomes the moral bridge between the living and the dead. She challenges both spiritual authority, initially faking her abilities, and social expectations, standing firm in rooms full of bankers, criminals, and ghosts. While some critics note that Oda Mae's role flirts with the magical Negro trope, a black character with mystical insight helping white protagonists, the character defies passive stereotype through agency, resistance, and narrative importance. Her journey is transformative, and she is not merely a device to serve Sam and Molly, but a flawed, funny, and fully realized woman whose own arc evolves from deception to spiritual awakening. Goldberg's Oscar-winning performance also marked a watershed moment in Hollywood, opening the door for more complex roles for black actresses in mainstream genres. 4. Gender roles, emotional labor, and female strength. Molly Jensen, Demi Moore, is initially portrayed through the traditional lens of the grieving romantic partner. However, as the film progresses, her role subtly critiques and expands on female emotional labor and vulnerability. Molly is not portrayed as helpless. She is self-sufficient, creative, and emotionally resilient. Her vulnerability does not make her weak, it makes her human. Her confrontation with Carl, and her skepticism of Oda Mae's claims, show that she is not passively believing or naive. She demands proof, asks hard questions, and ultimately takes action, including participating in the film's climax. Her grief is handled with nuance, not melodrama, which reflects the growing desire in the 1990s for more emotionally intelligent portrayals of women in film. The dynamic also explores emotional repression among men. Sam is unable to say "I love you" while alive, only expressing it through action. His emotional growth occurs posthumously, underscoring how unspoken feelings can haunt relationships. Scales #5. Justice and cosmic retribution in an unjust world. In a period where American audiences were increasingly skeptical of institutional justice, e.g., due to scandals like Iran-Contra or urban crime waves, Ghost presents an alternative justice system, cosmic, moral, spiritual. Carl and Willie don't face traditional legal prosecution. Instead, they are dragged to hell by shadowy figures, representing a karmic system where the universe corrects moral imbalance. The use of these supernatural consequences reflects the idea that spiritual justice is inescapable, even when worldly justice fails. This motif resonated with audiences frustrated with institutional corruption, providing narrative satisfaction through a higher-order morality. Broken Heart 6. Grief, trauma, and closure. At its heart, Ghost is a film about grieving a loved one taken too soon. Through Molly's experience, and Sam's spiritual journey, the film explores the emotional paralysis of unresolved loss. Sam's inability to let go mirrors the real-world struggle of people coping with death, while Molly's eventual ability to say goodbye reflects the process of healing and acceptance. The moment Sam says, "It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you," captures a universal truth about love, memory, and the enduring bonds that outlast physical life. This emotional core gives the film its timeless appeal, a cultural exploration of how people grapple with the permanence of death and the hope that love might transcend it. 7. Cultural relevance in 1990 and beyond. Ghost premiered at a time when American cinema was transitioning. Blockbusters were growing more cynical, yet audiences still craved sincere emotional storytelling. In many ways, the film is a cultural bridge. It combines New Age spiritual curiosity with Reagan-era critiques of greed and excess. It provides a female-centered emotional narrative without reducing the women to clichés. It reflects racial progress in media while also revealing Hollywood's lingering reliance on token tropes. In doing so, Ghost not only became a cultural phenomenon but also sparked conversations around spirituality, morality, and the metaphysical consequences of our actions. Clapperboard conclusion, a culturally reflective classic. While Ghost, 1990, is not overtly political, its resonance lies in its empathetic engagement with real-world emotional, spiritual, and social experiences. Through its blend of suspense, romance, comedy, and fantasy, the film acts as a mirror to late 20th century anxieties and hopes. Its themes of justice, love, greed, and redemption continue to speak to viewers decades later, proving that even a romantic ghost story can serve as a powerful vessel for cultural reflection and moral clarity, emotional resonance, love, loss, and longing. At the core of Ghost lies a deeply moving exploration of grief, eternal love, and spiritual connection. The relationship between Sam, Patrick Swayze, and Molly, Demi Moore, is established with sincerity and warmth, making Sam's sudden death early in the film all the more devastating. The pain of unresolved love, Molly never hearing "I love you" from Sam while he was alive, creates a lingering ache that resonates with anyone who has lost a loved one unexpectedly. When Sam, now a ghost, tries desperately to protect Molly from the dangers she cannot see, viewers are drawn into his frustration and helplessness. His emotional arc mirrors the human desire to hold on, to protect, and to be heard beyond the grave. The climactic final goodbye, where Sam says, "It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you," brings a cathartic release that often moves viewers to tears. It's a moment that speaks to the universal fear of loss and the comforting possibility that love transcends death. This powerful emotional throughline encourages audiences not only to empathize with the characters but to reflect on their own relationships and unspoken goodbyes. Faced with tears of joy, humor, and levity through Oda Mae Brown. Whoopi Goldberg's portrayal of Oda Mae Brown injects the film with unexpected humor, breaking the intensity of the drama without undercutting its gravity. Her transformation from fake medium to legitimate spiritual channel offers both comic relief and character depth, creating moments of laughter that are well-earned and tonally balanced. Scenes like Sam possessing Oda Mae to touch Molly again are simultaneously funny, heartfelt, and awkward, eliciting a wide range of reactions from audiences. Her streetwise sass and reluctant heroism give the film a grounding contrast to its more ethereal elements, making the narrative more accessible and multidimensional. Audiences consistently respond to Oda Mae with affection and appreciation, and Goldberg's Oscar-winning performance became one of the film's most talked-about elements, contributing significantly to its repeat viewership and cultural memorability. Fearful face, suspense, and shock, a supernatural thriller's edge. While Ghost is best remembered for its romance, the film's thriller elements heighten audience engagement through tension and surprise. The murder of Sam, occurring early in the story, delivers a shocking jolt that shifts the tone from romantic to tragic in an instant. The lurking danger posed by Carl, Tony Goldwyn, and Willie adds a layer of suspense, as viewers watch Molly unknowingly trust the man responsible for her partner's death. The shadow demons, terrifying, faceless figures who drag villains into the afterlife, create genuine moments of horror and moral consequence. Their sudden appearances are jarring and visually impactful, often provoking audible gasps from first-time viewers. These elements ensure that Ghost never settles into a single emotional tone, keeping viewers on edge and emotionally invested throughout. Reflection, discussion, and lasting impact. Beyond its immediate emotional impact, Ghost leaves audiences with much to contemplate. Its portrayal of the afterlife, justice, and unresolved love invites deeper reflection. Many viewers are left pondering the spiritual questions the film raises. What happens after death? Can love transcend mortality? Do actions in life echo into the next? Discussions about karma, betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption often emerge in post-viewing conversations as the characters' moral choices are examined. The film's emotional core and themes are strong enough that it often inspires repeat viewings, especially among those who seek comfort in its vision of enduring love and spiritual justice. Ghost became a popular shared emotional experience movie, one that couples watch together, people revisit during times of grief, or that fans introduce to younger audiences. Its cultural footprint includes parodies, references in other media, and even a Broadway adaptation, all driven by how deeply it engages viewers. Cyclone, a multisensory experience, music, visuals, and emotion. The iconic use of Unchained melody by the Righteous Brothers during the pottery scene is one of cinema's most emotionally charged and recognizable moments. That scene alone, evokes a sensual, spiritual, and romantic atmosphere, has been referenced and recreated countless times in pop culture, stirs emotional memories for many viewers, becoming symbolic of lost love and intimate connection. Such cinematic moments create emotional triggers that stay with the audience long after the film ends, enhancing its rewatch value and emotional depth. Clapperboard conclusion, a rare emotional tapestry that endures. Ghost, 1990, succeeds in emotionally engaging its audience because it speaks to universal human experiences: love, loss, regret, hope, and the possibility of reunion. It manages to walk a delicate line between genres, romantic drama, supernatural thriller, and spiritual mystery, while maintaining an emotional authenticity that few films achieve. Through heartfelt performances, a compelling script, suspenseful storytelling, and richly drawn characters, the film leaves a lasting impression. Whether through tears, laughter, or thoughtful silence, Ghost ensures that viewers feel something meaningful, making it one of the most emotionally engaging cinematic experiences of its era, and one that continues to touch audiences worldwide. Within the supernatural romance genre, a standout hybrid. Prior to Ghost, the supernatural romance subgenre was largely niche or overly sentimental, often skewing toward gothic melodrama, Somewhere in Time, 1980, or high fantasy, Heaven Can Wait, 1978. Ghost, however, offered something novel, a modern urban love story fused with spiritual intrigue and a crime thriller framework. Unlike earlier films that romanticized the afterlife, Ghost grounded its spiritual elements in contemporary New York life, with real-world consequences like murder, betrayal, and financial fraud. The romantic thread between Sam and Molly was intensified by their physical separation, one being dead, allowing the film to explore grief, communication beyond death, and the persistence of love in deeply emotional and fresh ways. The inclusion of comedy through Whoopi Goldberg's Oda Mae Brown gave Ghost a tonal complexity that most genre films lacked, balancing heaviness with humor and heart. Few romantic fantasy films prior to or after Ghost have matched its tonal balance, genre fusion, and emotional depth. Later attempts, such as City of Angels, 1998, or The Lake House, 2006, borrowed some of its themes but rarely achieved the same narrative momentum or resonance. Performing arts comparisons with contemporaries, 1990s genre cinema. In the landscape of early 90s cinema, Ghost was a surprising success, both critically and commercially. Released in the same year as films like Pretty Woman, Misery, and Dances with Wolves, Ghost carved its own niche. It was neither a straightforward romantic comedy nor a pure thriller, yet it outperformed most genre-defined films, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1990 worldwide. In contrast to the action-heavy blockbusters or grittier dramas of the time, Ghost offered emotional vulnerability and spiritual contemplation without veering into melodrama. It resonated across demographics, attracting fans of romance, mystery, and even light horror, much like how Titanic, 1997, would later transcend genre to become a global phenomenon. Where many romantic films of its time emphasized attraction or dramatic conflict, Ghost emphasized connection, sacrifice, and transcendence, offering a philosophical dimension rarely found in mainstream romantic cinema. Clapperboard within Jerry Zucker's filmography, a radical departure. Jerry Zucker, previously best known for directing slapstick comedies like Airplane, 1980, and Top Secret, 1984, took a creative leap with Ghost, his first foray into serious drama. Zucker's background in comedic timing and visual gags is subtly present, especially in Goldberg's scenes, but his directorial pivot was a bold and unexpected move that paid off immensely. The success of Ghost demonstrated his versatility, allowing him to shift from parody to profound, while still delivering moments of levity that enhanced rather than undermined the film's emotional tone. Compared to his earlier work, Ghost is anomalous yet defining, showcasing his ability to handle intimate emotion and high-concept storytelling with sincerity and balance. Film hash innovations versus familiar formulas. Ghost draws on classic storytelling tropes, the unresolved love story, the need for justice, the spiritual journey of the deceased, but it subverts or enhances them in meaningful ways. The idea of a murdered soul solving his own death echoes noir and mystery traditions but gains freshness through the lens of romance and supernatural powers. The film subverts gender norms by giving Molly strength and agency, while also providing space for emotional vulnerability. She is not just a damsel but a grounded, grieving, and independent artist. The final act doesn't rely on traditional revenge or violent justice but on moral and spiritual closure, elevating the story from genre fare to emotional allegory. This blend of the familiar and the innovative is part of what makes Ghost feel both timeless and fresh. Legacy and influence. The long-term impact of Ghost can be seen in its influence on TV shows and films involving ghosts with unfinished business, The Sixth Sense, Just Like Heaven, Ghost Whisperer. Romantic plots involving time, death, and reincarnation, The Time Traveler's Wife, Your Name. Comedic mediums where spiritualism meets sarcasm, often with a character like Oda Mae serving as a spiritual intermediary with flair. Despite many imitators, few have achieved the same critical and commercial success, underscoring Ghost's uniqueness in the cinematic landscape. Conclusion: a genre-defining, genre-transcending classic. Ghost, 1990, is a film that transcends easy classification. While it draws from familiar genres, romance, thriller, fantasy, comedy, it blends them into a cohesive and emotionally powerful narrative that defies simple labels. In comparison to similar films, it offers originality in theme, tone, and character, and compared to Jerry Zucker's earlier work, it marks a profound directorial evolution. Ultimately, Ghost remains a singular cinematic achievement, a film that moves, thrills, and entertains with equal potency, setting a benchmark for what genre hybrids can achieve when executed with heart, intelligence, and sincerity. The symbol of light and darkness. One of the most prominent symbolic threads in Ghost is the consistent use of light and darkness to represent spiritual forces. Light becomes a symbol of peace, resolution, and transcendence. When souls are ready to move on, they are enveloped by a warm, radiant glow. The final scene, in which Sam is taken into the light, signifies redemption, emotional closure, and divine acceptance. Darkness, in contrast, is used to depict corruption and damnation. When antagonists like Willie and Carl die, their souls are dragged away by shadowy, shrieking phantoms, which metaphorically represent guilt, evil, or unresolved sin. This binary serves as a visual metaphor for the moral compass within the film. The choices people make in life have spiritual consequences that persist beyond death. Performing arts the Ghost as a metaphor for unresolved emotion. Sam Wheat, played by Patrick Swayze, represents a soul trapped not just between life and death, but between unfinished emotional business and the desire for peace. His ghostly existence becomes a metaphor for grief, regret, and the human need for connection. Sam's inability to say "I love you" while alive is crucial. His posthumous journey is less about revenge or solving his murder and more about learning to express the vulnerability he suppressed in life. This makes his ghostly state a symbolic extension of emotional repression. He lingers because he cannot let go of love, of anger, of protection, and only when he says "I love you" and hears it back is he freed. In this way, the Ghost is not just a supernatural figure, it's a manifestation of psychological limbo. Mirrors, reflections, and the seen or unseen. The film also frequently plays with the seen versus unseen, a core metaphor reflecting how truth and reality are often obscured. Sam can see Molly, but she cannot see him. This visual dichotomy illustrates the idea that grief blinds people to spiritual presence, or that the living and the dead inhabit overlapping yet inaccessible realities. Oda Mae Brown, who initially fakes her psychic abilities, suddenly becomes the only conduit between worlds. Her transformation from fraud to medium serves as a metaphor for faith and awakening, a non-believer who becomes a believer through direct experience. Moments where Sam passes through objects or struggles to interact with the physical world reinforce his powerlessness and detachment, not just from space but from emotion and intimacy. Hands and touch as symbolic currency. Touch, or the lack thereof, becomes a recurring motif throughout Ghost, symbolizing intimacy, distance, and the soul's desire for connection. The iconic pottery scene, which later takes on new meaning when recreated through Oda Mae's body, is drenched in physical sensuality and emotional vulnerability. When Sam touches Molly near the end through Oda Mae, it becomes a metaphor for love transcending form and flesh. The longing to touch and be touched is used not for eroticism but as emotional metaphor, a symbol of human longing, connection, and closure. The inability to physically connect becomes a visual stand-in for emotional frustration, unresolved grief, and spiritual yearning. Counterclockwise arrows, circular motifs, and emotional closure. Recurring visual and narrative circles underscore the film's deeper meditation on karma, justice, and the cyclical nature of emotional growth. The story begins with construction, building a home, creating art, and fostering love. It ends with reconstruction, rebuilding emotional wholeness after loss. Carl's betrayal is not just corporate or criminal. It represents the cycle of greed leading to ruin, as his selfishness ultimately seals his doom. Sam's death is sudden and unfair, but the narrative gives him a full circle arc. He protects, he learns, he loves, and then lets go. These structural patterns enhance the viewer's sense of poetic justice, reinforcing the idea that the soul's journey is incomplete without growth and forgiveness. Musical score Unchained melody as a symbol of eternal love. The repeated use of the Righteous Brothers' Unchained melody is more than a musical choice, it's a lyrical and emotional motif. The song's yearning tone and lyrics echo the film's spiritual themes. Lyrics like "Time goes by so slowly," and "Time can do so much" mirror the experience of a ghost caught between worlds, longing for reunion. Each reprise of the song becomes a symbolic return to love's purity, reminding both characters and viewers that emotional bonds are unbreakable by death. Symbolic role of justice and karma. The film subtly embeds ideas of cosmic justice and karmic balance without being overtly religious. Bad deeds, Carl and Willie's betrayal, are punished not by human law but by supernatural forces, suggesting a moral universe governed by unseen but inescapable laws. Sam is granted his ghostly existence not as a curse, but as a spiritual second chance, a metaphorical trial where his soul must earn peace by doing right. These metaphors reinforce Ghost as a modern fable with spiritual undertones. Actions matter, love transcends, and justice, divine or otherwise, will find its way. Conclusion: symbolism as the soul of the story. From its nuanced visual language to its thematic metaphors, Ghost, 1990, crafts a rich symbolic framework that enhances its story far beyond